Good afternoon. I'm calling to order the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting for April 16th, 2015. Our first order of business is to receive the minutes of the April 2nd, 2015 meeting.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Register your vote. The minutes are received. Do I have continuance requests or withdrawal requests from staff?
We have two today. Item number 4, case number 14007 is requesting a continuance to May 21st, and item number 11, case number 13994, is requesting to be withdrawn.
I would request a separate motion and vote on those two requests.
I'll move that we continue item number 4, case number 14007, until May, I'm sorry, what was it?
21st.
21st.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue case 14007 to May the 21st. Register your vote. Case is continued.
Do we really need to take action on the withdrawal?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll need a motion.
Yes, I do need a motion.
I move that we withdraw item number 11, case number 13994.
13394.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Register your vote. Case is withdrawn. Do we have any other requests from the public? Hearing none, our next business is the consent docket.
We have two items on the consent docket today. Item number 1, case number 14041, and item number 2, case number 14044.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Register your vote. The consent agenda is approved.
Item number 3, case number 14030, application for special exception of YDF to allow a disposal well located at 9440 Southwest 15th Street.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Wayne Smith, 7011 North Robinson, here on behalf of the applicant YDF Incorporated. When we previously met on this case, we were still awaiting the approval by the Oklahoma Corporation Commission for this disposal well. As of yesterday, I received a notice via email that it has been recommended for approval. So having an actual order in my hand, I do not have at this time, but I do have the email where it was recommended by the reviewer for approval.
Virtually no experience in this area whatsoever. I don't know how likely that means it is to be approved. Somebody else who knows can tell me. It's like once you get your recommendation, is it done deal or not? We have continued this matter thinking we would like to see it approved.
No, I think if he's got an email confirmation, I'd be comfortable enough. I mean, you have your email that's confirming your
Yes.
intent to drill?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be noticed in publication. in the
Close
paper.
enough.
Yeah. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 5, case number 14037, request of Brad Peak Turbo Express for a variance to the sign regulations located at 1000 West Memorial Road.
Yes, sir. Your address and name for the record, please.
Brad Peak,
And your address.
1000 West Memorial.
Go ahead and speak to your application.
We'd like to put an entrance sign identifying the car wash entrance. It's a 6x6 sign. It'll be 15 foot tall. It's a bit confusing now to the customers. They're driving through the vacuum area first before they get to the pay station. So,
Is there anyone here in opposition?
Nobody assigned to speak.
what's that?
I was responding. Is there anybody here to protest this application, this request?
You know, the Kirkpatrick Turnpike is, of course, an appearance corridor, and we have routinely been very, very reluctant to allow signage that faces onto it. While I understand that it might be desirable for the applicant to have some kind of directional signage, that is to say something low to the ground that's easy for a driver to see, I don't see that the need to be able to navigate the site justifies additional advertising that faces out onto the Kilpatrick. Certainly not an 18-foot pole sign that has no limitations on EMD capability and so forth. So I cannot support this application.
Is there any signage that would not be quite as tall or of this scale?
Well, I could lower it, I mean, whatever is acceptable. I could make it 10 feet, 7 feet, whatever.
I'm pretty familiar with this site. I use the gas station quite frequently there. The problem is that if you go up on the north part of the property, whereas actually what you would intuitively think is the entrance, is the exit, and you actually enter in off the service road, and the on-queue has a curb cut and it splits. You can go to the west, back over to the on-queue, into the east, over into his car wash. I do agree with you, Janice, that the sign may be in size a little too big for that corridor, but if we limited it as to use and made it more conformity with the area, with the signs in the area that we have allowed, I would not have a problem with it. This is a very unique property because you actually exit onto Memorial and enter from the service road.
Well, if the signage were, as I say, limited to the kind of directional signage that we put, say, on a campus of a large, institutional use, so that you know where you're going, just something to direct you where you're going, and if it were not, an electronic sign, certainly not a pole sign, then yeah, I could support a monument sign at the entrance. I understand the issue with respect to needing to get people where they need to go.
Based on the topography of your site, from the approach on the access road and then as you enter, how tall does it need to be in your mind to really serve that purpose?
Truth is that somebody gave me this sign, so I was trying to utilize it. But it's a pole sign, so I can whack it down to 6 feet, 8 feet, whatever.
So really the height isn't an issue?
No, it would be, obviously higher is better, but I'll take less. It's a 6x6 sign.
Is there
It's illuminated, right? It's not digital, so.
And you'd be okay with a restriction on
Sure.
the use of? Okay.
I'll take what I can get. It'll be helpful to the customers and obviously help me too, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the application, assuming that we can restrict the use of EMD and condition of no use of EMD, and then also 8 feet, restriction of 8 feet in height.
I'd second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You are approved.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 6, case number 14042, request of Craft and Toll and Associates for a variance to the hard surface paving requirement located at 10601 West Reno Avenue.
Yes, sir. Your name and address for the record, please.
George Marquez with Craft and Toll, 214 East Main Street, representing Northwest Companies. Reading the staff report, there were 2 unfavorable considerations that we would like to address. The first one being the site proofing and tree placement along the west side of the property line. Due to the elevation change between the turnpike and the west property line, we don't think that site proof fence or any sort of landscaping is feasible because it would offer little to no site proof of the site. I mean, Turnpike's about 12 to 14 feet higher than the site, so putting a fence and trees along there would offer no benefit to the public. And properties, the existing properties to the north of our site currently don't have any sort of landscaping along the Turnpike frontage, and they're just using a chain link fence. And they're closer to the Turnpike as well. And item number 2 is regarding signage for the site. Since our client is going to be storing their equipment there, we would require some sort of signage indicating, the company that's there.
Can I interrupt you just briefly?
Yes.
I had noted that as in the unfavorable considerations, but when I look at the application, it's a variance request for hard surface paving only. I don't see anything regarding.
Right, and that is what the request is to be able to use a gravel surface, but at the same time, staff report is indicating that they want these additional items to the improvements that we're trying to make on the site.
Kathy or Laura, one of the two, I mean, we cannot consider or take into consideration or act on any request regarding signage. The only thing before us today is the hard surface.
It's the hard surface,
requirement.
yeah.
So, to talk to these ladies about the signage issue, it would be treated as a separate issue, not before us today.
Okay, so these unfavorable considerations are,
So we're only talking about your hard surface request.
okay.
And your contention is that because of the elevation difference in the highway and the property line where the landscaping would be installed, the elevation difference is about 14 feet?
Right.
And you're saying that the landscaping, in essence, is not relevant because from the highway you look over the top of it?
Exactly. I mean, it offers no site proofing whatsoever.
To Janice's point, though, I know there are certain areas of the city that, have been designated as, they require, more scrutiny and more attention in terms of trying to maintain an appearance.
Right.
Do they specify in terms of the landscaping, the height of the trees or things like that might,
I believe it's medium-sized trees is what's
in the definition
required.
of a medium-sized tree?
Well, the point about trees is that they grow, of course, so the size they are when they go in is not necessarily the size that they are forever.
Is there anyone here in opposition to the application regarding the use of gravel as opposed to hard surface?
I'm really sorry that JG's not with us today. It seems to me that we are entertaining an increasing, although maybe my tenure here is not long enough to make that judgment, number of these requests for permeable surfacing. And I think, maybe it's time to look at the requirements. If we don't really intend to have people keep hard surface, if it's difficult for them or if
There's a
it's
trade-off.
expensive to maintain or...
This is, in my view, this is totally different than the issue we looked at last time, if for no other reason, just the use itself. It's not about avoiding it, it's about the fact that it's impractical for the use that the property is zoned for, and the intended purpose of industrial is to allow uses just like this. To put concrete down would be, it'd be a complete waste of money.
It'd be buckling within 6 months.
So then perhaps it would be a good idea to look at the ordinance and see if it's really applicable in areas like,
I think
heavy
that's
industrial.
entirely appropriate because we have applicants that come before us and say, well, you do it for X, but you don't do it for Y. Well,
Right.
when you're building a residential development, it's quite a bit different than building a heavy truck yard.
Yeah. I agree with you that it should be looked at, because in this instance, unless there's someone that is in serious opposition to it for some reason, I'd make a motion to approve it, just because I understand why you're here.
Right.
So, and with that, I'll move to approve it.
We're just approving the...
Just what's before us, the gravel. That's it.
I have a question. I have a question that, you talked about and I'm confused because you started off with the unfavorable considerations and you addressed them, but Are you planning on coming back and asking for a variance for those as well? Additional sign? Is that where staff got that indication?
We'll look at the verbiage that the PUD has regarding that. I mean, we will abide with whatever the PUD has.
Okay, very good. I'll second that motion.
Before we vote, though, to be clear, the variance is for the hard surface requirement only?
Right.
And we are approving gravel. Are we addressing the landscape?
Well, no, I think what the staff report is suggesting is that, you know, there are some unfavorable considerations to locating this use in this location without the grant of the variance to allow non-hard surface paving in this appearance corridor, and that there are some things that could be done to mitigate that. And they're suggesting that what those things are is that some additional landscaping could be planted, and or you know, that the sign allowances under the existing PUD could be scaled back, again, as a way to mitigate the effect of the variance. It's not that there's anything that they need to get varied in order to do what they're wanting to do. It says that the PUD sign regulations include, for instance, EMD signage. And so they're suggesting that as a way to mitigate the effect of what they're asking for here.
I get that point. I guess I'm a little confused on how we would mitigate or attach a landscaping requirement to it.
The PUD probably requires some sort of landscaping. Do you know what the PUD requires? This is a
I really don't. I mean, we're going to abide with whatever the PUD indicates.
But I agree with Janice. I think when J.J. was writing this, he was thinking, these are some ways that you can make it soften the gravel a little bit, since it is so close to the highway. Not that they're asking for it, not that they're saying that they're going to do any type of EMD sign or not put in landscaping or anything like that. But if you're going to put in your required landscaping, but if you guys want to require more to kind of offset the gravel.
Well, I don't think any of us knows what the PUD requirement is for landscaping, so therefore, I mean, we don't know whether there is one, and if so, what it is, right?
Correct.
Yeah, the request is strictly for the use of gravel in lieu of hard pavement.
And so we're not in a position to really, ascribe any additional landscaping requirement because we don't know what, if anything, exists now. So we have a motion and a second. Do you want your motion and second to stand, and are you ready to vote?
Yeah, my motion stands.
We have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 7, case number 14043, request of Louis V. LePac Trucking Company for a variance to the hard surface paving requirement and a special exception to allow an above-ground fuel storage tank located at 821 North Portland Avenue.
Jeff Lepak, 821 North Portland Avenue, on behalf of Louis V. Lepak Trucking Company. Basically, we're trying to put an above-ground storage tank. We've met with the fire marshal. We meet all their requirements. It's my belief that some of these codes are somewhat outdated within the city code to get the permit through the city for the occupancy permit in order to get the above-ground storage tank. I have submitted everything. There's a request with respect to the gravel. The lot's there. It's got paved up front, gravel back where the trucks go. I have an aerial view that I did bring if someone would like to look at it, where the tanks go. There's a request for a variance from the 8-foot fencing around the tank. Our entire lot is 6-foot fenced around already on 2.29 acres. You can't have a storage tank this large. It says under 2.5 acres. We are 2.29 acres. We're landlocked. We don't have any other options to obtain any more land, so we'd like to be able to put the fuel tank in.
Are you aware of the letter from Atlas?
No, I am not aware of the letter from Atlas.
Shouldn't the applicant have had access to the protest letter? Can we share that with him, one of us, so that he's aware of what their objections may be?
While they're looking, you were going over you were referencing some of the requirements. You're familiar with the zoning ordinance, the section, and all the requirements outline things like it has to have the approval of the fire marshal and the setbacks and all that stuff?
Correct, yes.
And you're in compliance with all those matters except those that are before us for the variances?
Correct. I spoke with Fire Marshal
exceptions.
Rocky Miller, and he's given me the requirements, and we meet all of their requirements. The requirements that are in the city code appear to be for single-wall tanks. They require a little plastic tub around the old tanks and stuff like that for a containment system. The type of tank that the fire marshal now requires you to put in that is in accordance with the International Fire Code is a double-walled tank that has a self-containment system built into it now. It's a lot safer tank than what appears to have been written when these codes were written.
What International Fire Code are you using? What year, do you know?
International, I submitted it in the package there, but
And while you're looking through your paperwork, a copy of the letter from Atlas is here for you. If you wouldn't mind, take it and take a moment and review it and respond to it.
I had asked that we have somebody here, one of the fire inspectors or some from the fire marshal's office, whoever the appropriate person would be. I'm really uncomfortable with these kinds of applications where there is a discrepancy between, what the applicant is telling us and what our code requires. But I want to be really clear about what the discrepancy is. It seems to me from the comments of the Development Services Department under favorable considerations that what they're telling us is that it's not that the application that is submitted doesn't meet the code requirements for fire safety. It's just that it doesn't meet the requirements for zoning code, and that the zoning code is, 20 years out of date. That seems to me to be problematic. But I also am not knowledgeable enough in an area like this to know whether, in fact, what the applicant has submitted does meet the fire marshal's code. And that's why I was hoping that we'd have somebody here today who could answer that question for us. Not to cast any aspersions on Mr. Lepak, but, it's not infrequent that applicants think that their applications are just fine, and staff has a different view of that. So if the only thing that's at issue here is the zoning requirement, and, in fact, that requirement is simply out of date, that's one thing for me. If there is some real issue of fire safety with respect to the configuration or the double wall or the second containment or whatever that verbiage is, then that's very different to me, especially with respect to the proximity of the tank to a structure that's going to be occupied and so on.
As far as the question to which year of the International Fire Code, I am not sure. I did put a copy of it in the packet, and along with the email from the fire marshal, it was given to me from the fire marshal of the requirements that I'd have to meet. And, of course, I have to go through their permit and, everything to be allowed to have that tank in there. With regards to Atlas Paving, I have no issues with the second page of it. All permits required by the City of Oklahoma City we would be getting. That's one of the reasons I'm here, is to get that and get the occupancy permit up. All the required permits by the OCC as well. A spill prevention control and countermeasures as provided by state law. I have to have that on file as per the fire marshal. The double wall tank is what we are putting in. It's the only tank that the City of Oklahoma City will even allow in the city requirements, as well as the fuel dispensing devices. So we're meeting all the requirements of what they're talking. Also, to get the occupancy permit, I'm having to undergo, get a approval from the storm, the storm, they mentioned the stormwater permit or something that they have to go through. I am being required to do that as well on a separate measure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not altering anything about the requirements of other permit issues that relate to fire safety or the fire marshal. All we're doing is examining these two specific variance items, so he would still have to comply with all of that, right?
So the special exception application was just, I believe, for the size of the tank that's required.
And there were several variances listed as well.
Right, but the Board of Adjustment is not in the position to be waiving or varying the fire code.
And that was, to Janice's point, so I just want to be clear too, that is what we're looking at, are just those two items. We're not, by granting a variance on any of those items, we wouldn't be altering any of those other
But we
requirements.
need to remember, the variance request is for hard surface paving only.
And the size of the tank.
The special exception to allow an above-ground
I'm
fuel
sorry, you're
storage
right.
tank, and our criteria is different for a variance request and a special exception. And I think, in reference to Atlas's concern about, the runoff and some of the other things, in the special exception in particular, we have the ability to consider the impact of the variance request or the special exception request on the adjoining properties and neighbors. Is there anyone here in protest or wishes to speak on this application or this variance request? Could I excuse you, Mr. Lepak? Sir, your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Bruce Smith. I'm the president of Atlas Asphalt Products. P.O. Box 74075, dang it, I forgot what it was. 75727, Oklahoma City 73147. Okay?
We have your letter,
Okay, you have my letter? Okay.
so why don't you go ahead and tell us about it.
Mr. Lepak's, this property essentially meets no requirements of the zoning requirements to put in a tank, especially a tank this size. Also, this property, I mean, we've had an asphalt plant there since the 50s. We've owned this property and been bordered by either a tenant or prior owners to Mr. Lepak. I'm not sure how long he has owned this property, but this property has not been improved since 1978 that I've gone to work there. The fence is not a 6-foot fence, it's a 4-foot, it's been knocked down, it's leaning by trucks backing into it. The lot is gravelled. They've thrown a little broken up concrete at the lower end, trying to make some semblance of controlling their surface discharge water. The lot is really essentially full, completely full of an older fleet of commercial vehicles. I think their one source is the U.S. Mail Service, which is cutting back. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. We have, over the history, we have had discharges from prior tenants there because everything runs from that corner right onto our property. So we've had lost trees, we've had damage to our grass and some other issues. The setbacks required in the zoning is a setback from property lines and from existing buildings on the lot. I don't think there's any way they can meet that requirement unless you give them an exception. And essentially, also, this lot isn't applicable for this size of tank. Now, when we went through this process back in probably the late 90s when we were required to remove our underground storage tank, we had to have a setback of 1,000 feet from the nearest residential house. And I know this side won't do that. Now, I don't know the current regulations, but they might have been a little stiffer back then. But we had a lot of regulations that we had to go through. We have a concrete retaining wall around our tanks with a 6-foot barbed wire, a chain link barbed wire fence on top of that to keep vandals or people from getting to the tanks. Okay, and we are paved all the way around it, and then we have secondary containment and filtration if any surface water does breach the wall or through it and before it goes into the drainage system. This property, the problem we have with the Lepak property is that they have done no improvements and have shown no best practices of trying to clean their surface water or maintain their property. They essentially, all their water from their, all these trucks are leaking oil, and we don't know what they're spilling over there, but it all drains onto us. Okay, and then this water drains across our property into our discharge. We are required by the Clean Water Act and the DEQ, who regulates us, we have to sample this water as it discharges our property. Well, we were having problems doing this, but we found out that the water coming onto our property from the various locations was of lower quality than when it discharged. So this is a burden to us if they, without them paving their lots, because now we're getting particulates or silt or rock flour, what do you want to call it, and sheen, which is fuel and oil, from their trucks onto our property now. So they're essentially illegally discharging, surface water onto us. And then we do have a structure very close to the property line of them that's within 75 feet. So I really don't know. I mean, I can't believe they're allowed to put a 12,000-gallon tank on this size of lot. I mean, we have 20,000, and I own 38 acres, and we had 1,000-foot setbacks in all directions, and we had a hard time getting that. So I don't know. I think until they have shown that they're going to be responsible and put this in and maintain it in an orderly way and with best practices and assurances and, with a PE-approved spill prevention plan and some other things, I just don't see that it's going to improve.
Do you have a direct protest on the point of the use of gravel as opposed to hard surface?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
I'm Bruce. I'm sorry. Yes, we'd like to see it paved. Paved surfaces are absolutely cleaner. You can see the oil spills. Right now, the oil spills, if these trucks are leaking, they just go right into the gravel and they disappear and you don't see them. If you have a paved surface, if you have a leaking truck, you see it. You know it. Now, on our facility, if our trucks are leaking and stuff, we have to go over and clean it up, or we have little pans of, kitty litter there, and we catch it all and then process it and pay disposal companies to get rid of this. And so, yes, hard surface shows everything that's leaks, spills, drops, whatever.
So
gravel surface shows nothing.
So your protest to the hard surface, the variance of the hard surface requirement,
the hard surface and the size of the tank and the setbacks. Yes.
I understand. Is because of the safety issue with ground contamination?
It's a safety issue, and it's a a maintenance or what we call best practices,
right.
Best maintenance practices, which is that's kind of in the legal jargon of our permit, that we have to maintain these, document them, and keep track of them, and show that we've done them, and it's quite involved. We are heavily permitted and regulated.
I understand. You realize that that's not before us, though.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we are concerned that what they may produce there, and it's making a burden on us now with what they're producing.
Okay. As it relates to the size of the tank and the special exception request, your objection to that is, again, one of just safety. The size of the tank.
I think 12,000 gallons is huge. My gosh. I can't believe that you guys would even consider anything bigger than 4,000. Right?
Well, let me ask you a silly question. 10,000 is allowed. What's the difference between 10,000 and 12,000 in your mind?
A bit more capacity, I guess, and more chance for a larger spill.
Is there an argument to be made? I'm asking you for the fact that a 12,000 gallon...
like I said, it's been a long time since I've gone through this. We did it back in the late 90s, and I think at that time, at 38 acres, we only qualified for 10. So I can't believe that, it's revolved to this over the years, really.
Yeah. But my point is, Bruce, is that he could put a 10,000-gallon tank in there based on what we're seeing from the code, and there's really nothing we could do about it.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to understand from you is if there's something about a 12,000-gallon tank, if there's a danger that poses...
If that's the code, then that's the code. We'll certainly abide by that. But we think that we believe that they have not shown a history of responsibilities with their property and stuff.
Okay.
You're saying that he is allowed 10,000. Wouldn't even that require the 2.5 acres?
Yes. Like I say, they don't qualify in any way, anyhow, for your zoning unless they get all kinds of exceptions.
The code says that a 2.5-acre lot size requirement, the minimum 100-foot distance requirement of property lines and occupied building on site, and the fencing requirement and the containment requirement takes over 12,000. what he's asking for, if I'm reading this right, someone tell me if I'm not, if I'm reading this right, is he would be allowed a 10,000-gallon tank under the terms of the ordinance. But in order to get a 12,000, which by his explanation on the application...
No, Scott, he's only got a 2.29 acre lot, so he has to have a variance for both. If you have a 2.5 acre lot, you get 10,000 gallons.
So he wouldn't even be allowed a 10,000 gallon?
That's correct.
He's not allowed any tank. That's the way I understand it.
I guess I'm reading that. I guess I'm reading that.
I don't even know where you'd put it on his lot. I mean, you'd have to put it right in the darn middle of the lot.
Look at-
I don't know. Just
Number 2, summary of application. Prong 3, the minimum lot size eligible shall be 2.5 acres or greater. Go back to statutory standards. Third paragraph under D, our current location is 2.29 acres.
And on the next page, I mean, they make reference to the elevation issues on the property and that they've chosen to locate the tank behind our building. And I don't know that we ever knew what the distance between that proposed tank location and the building was. The requirement is not less than 50 feet, I believe.
Yeah, I don't, that's a really small area where they're proposing. I don't know if you could meet any setback there.
I'm a little unclear. What it says is that the above-ground storage tanks shall be located at least 100 feet from all property lines and any occupied building on the site. However, a protected tank meeting the criteria of the fire marshal's office may be located within 100 feet. It was one of the reasons why I was hoping we'd have somebody here today. I'm not sure exactly what that terminology means.
You mean closer than 100 feet?
The protected tank
Can be closer than 100?
can be within,
But it
yes,
doesn't say
not,
a minimum.
not less than 50.
A lot less than 50.
Janice, you've made 2 comments that I think are worth let's explore a little more. We don't have anybody here from the agency to represent themselves, the fire department, code enforcement, fire code enforcement. We also don't have a staff person here today that normally is our liaison. In light of those 2 issues, I don't feel comfortable acting on this issue for or against until we had some more input. The only thing I feel comfortable with this time would be a continuance.
I agree with that completely.
Our next meeting date is May the 7th. The date after that would be May 21st. Mr. Lepak, would you consider a continuance to address some of these uncertainties that we're facing today?
There will be another notification sent out, or
No.
I'll just have to remember it?
On the 7th of May?
It's close to my birthday, let me think.
Is May the 7th deemed enough time to do the due diligence that we're requesting, or do you want May the 21st?
You can probably have staff here by May 7th.
Okay. Then I guess I would entertain a motion to continue this case to May the 7th.
May
I
7th.
move. So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to continue to May the 7th. We are continued.
Item number 8, case number 14045, request of Brickopolis Entertainment for a variance to the minimum height requirement located at 110 East California Avenue.
Good afternoon. Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue, Oklahoma City. On behalf of the applicant, this is a mini golf project that's an interim use of the vacant land located at the corner of the canals. It turns and goes south to Reno. I think you all are familiar with that. You may have seen some stuff in the paper on it. The new Brickopolis building is being constructed immediately to the east between the canal and Mickey Mantle, and is nearing completion. The golf use has been approved by the Bricktown Urban Design Committee, and it's permitted by right in the downtown district. The catch that we are here for is the fact that we have a temporary ticket booth that we want to put on the site, and the regulations along the canal require a height requirement that would be silly for us to build that building that tall, so we've asked for a variance to allow this single-use, single-size, 15-foot-high little ticket building that will be located this is the blow-up of the corner, so it's kind of sitting catty-cornered. The gate to enter in off the canal walkway is here. There'll be other entertainment things that go on here, and then the golf, of course, is there. Mr. Box is here on behalf of adjacent property owner, and they were concerned that our application covered our whole property that we own, and so we have agreed, and I submitted this information to the staff, but I wasn't able to get a response, but we've reduced our legal description to just this piece. And I've submitted that to Mr. Box.
Mr. Johnson, in our staff report, what it says under unfavorable considerations is that the board should consider limiting the variance to this building only, and as long as it is used in conjunction with an active miniature golf use. So, I mean,
We're in agreement with that.
Initially, I was thinking of it more in terms of a term of years, but I mean, I think that gets you what you need.
It does.
Before we act on this request, too, Mr. Box is asked to speak in protest of this application.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, not in protest. We are in agreement with what Mr. Johnson said. Our concern was simply the nature of a variance, being that it runs with the land forever and ever, and there is a much higher and better use for this site than a small ticket booth. We worked with staff and legal staff, and unfortunately there was no way to do it, so our idea was shrink it down to just that little postage stamp where the building will sit, and then tie it back to that very limited use. But the concept my client has no problems with, just making sure that in the future we do have a much better use for that site.
So the change in the legal description gets you what you need?
Absolutely.
And Steph did receive the new, JJ did receive the new legal description for just where the kiosk is. So we will make that as part of the application.
Is there anybody else here who wants to be heard on this matter?
No one else that I'm aware of. Anybody else want to speak on this application?
Well, I'll move approval of the application, limiting the request to the legal description that's been supplied, and limiting to this building only and to its use in conjunction with the miniature golf facility.
Second.
The motion and a second. Register your vote.
Thank you.
Ms. Powers, you are approved.
Thanks.
Item number 9, case number 14046, request of Garrett and Company for a variance to the front yard setback and landscaping requirements located at 8401 North Classen Boulevard.
Sir, your name and address for the record, please.
Pat Garrett, 9701 North Broadway Extension, Oklahoma City.
Talk to us about your application.
I'm sorry?
Talk to us about your application.
I'm asking for two variants. One is a front yard setback. This property is real unique. It's on Classen. Classen's at an angle there. We have some restrictions to this property. There is a substation, OG&E substation to our north. There is an oil field to our west. There's a pipeline that runs through our parking lot. The way the road, we are having an address on Classen, but we are facing it to the abandoned or vacated 83rd Street. The way our building would sit, Classen is here, vacated 83rd's here. We're facing the building along 83rd Street, facing to the south. The setback would be 15 feet at the very rear of our property, but with the street angling, there's going to be approximately 20 feet of right-of-way there that we would be landscaping. And that's the other issue, is the landscaping. And what we're proposing is to put 2-inch Chinese pistachios every 25 feet instead of every 40, and put 4 of those in. And in between those come with a 6-inch Nellie Stevens, and put all our landscaping on Classen where it's visible. Everything else, the oil field is to the back. There's built-out warehouses to our south, and we have a substation to our north. So we're wanting to do all the landscaping where it will be seen from the road on Classen. We don't meet all the points. So we're proposing to put in the 7 different plants and make it a real nice look to the front. And again, just because of the angle of the property and our restrictions, we're asking that we have that variance on our front yard, mainly because we're putting the building to the south. We're taking it to the old abandoned or vacated 83rd Street.
You have to know what your points would amount to based on what you've changed?
99. And how many do you have here for the meeting?
The code requires 99.
99,
What we're
right.
asking is what you're proposing, the point value of what you're
It looks
proposing.
like we meet the street requirement. We don't have all of them for the whole site.
Right, and I just want to make sure I get this, that I understand this correctly. But the reason for your request is so you can front all the landscaping, but you don't have enough room there to space it, so you're just tapering that
We're
down.
going to consolidate it into a smaller area and put more in that than the street would require. But
Without interfering with your
entire
limited-
site.
Yeah.
And it's the only part that's going to be visible from the street.
Yeah, and really you couldn't, because you're using abandoned 83rd, is there anywhere you could even put landscaping aside from the front?
It would be very hard because of the restraints.
Yeah.
We were condemned on 60 feet of our property here originally from OG&E, and it dropped it from 140 foot to 80 foot lot size.
Okay.
And so then when we're using the vacated street for the building and for our entrance, and it's just very size constraints there.
In the report we were given, there's also, in the text of the report, there's some other, you're not asking for anything else, correct?
We're not asking,
Okay.
there was four items originally. 2 of those items are going to be at the Board of Appeal. They're not part of this, and they were written up in the staff. Originally, we amended the application, and those were not removed.
Okay.
I'm very aware of the development that Mr. Garrett is doing in this area. This used to be part of my ward. And this is a fairly consistent product that he's putting out there. It works well in this area. It will be so much more attractive and such an improvement to this particular piece of property and this side of class. And so,
You don't like abandoned streets in Wellside?
well, this particular abandoned street in Wellside is a mess. So, yeah, I think it'll be an upgrade. If there's not anybody else here who wants to be heard on this matter, I'm going to move approval.
Is there anybody else present that wishes to speak on this application? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Register your vote. Ms. Powers, you are approved.
Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Did you want to make anything on how many points of landscaping he's required, or did you just?
I think they're going to be content to the landscaping as described by the applicant.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Item number 10, case number 14014, request appeal of William Jefferson of the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission regarding the denial of a certificate of appropriateness for fencing, new front and east side doors, new garage door, and outdoor kitchen located at 205 Northwest 32nd Street.
Mr. Jefferson? Anyone present for the applicant today?
I'd like to make a record for, I would make a motion for a continuance to the next meeting, but I would like the applicant to know he is an attorney, and he needs to give this tribunal the same candor and respect he would give a court appearance if he was shown up, so next time I would not vote for his continuance.
I can't even support that. I can't even support a continuance again. This is the 4th time that this has been here. People have appeared to speak on behalf of it on other occasions. He's been notified. He's had every opportunity to appear, and he continues to not do that.
Has he replied ever to anything we've sent him about he's going to be there, he's not? I mean, I hate to just kill the application and without getting one last shot.
He was asking for a continuance for the previous times in order to submit his information in regards to the appeal. We have since got that, and it was included in your staff report, so today's...
And he was notified of this meeting. I mean, presumably when he brought that information in, he would have been told yet again, there's a meeting, this is the date.
This is the day that they requested the continuance to.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
They specifically requested this date, as I recall.
Yes,
From.
and then they got their information to us, and he also got the link that I send out everyone for the staff reports.
I'm going to support Scott's position, and that, you know, we've had 3 continuances. The applicant was notified of today's meeting, has chosen not to appear and not to notify the board that he was unable to appear.
Just to make the record clear, he did request this date?
He did request this date.
This wasn't one we assigned to him?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we've been patient enough on this one. I really do.
Is that a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny this application. Register your vote. This application is denied. If there's no other business before this board, is there anybody else here to speak on any other matter? If there's no other business before this board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Register your vote. We are adjourned.